Sandra.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Abby.
I'm John. Oh
Hey
shit,
Abby,
am
what
I?
do you watch?
Oh, this week we watched Murder My Sweet, which was directed by Edward Dmytryk. hmm
Hmm.
And it was produced in 1944. It's a thriller movie about a private investigator hired to find um it's complicated, an ex-con's former girlfriend is the initial
Mm,
plot. Yeah.
very good. We're going to be talking about the differences in behavior, language, or just general the differences between innocuous actions that these characters take or circumstances that they are in, and how they are different or suggest differences in ideology between 1944 America and 2024 America.
Yes. Can I say something really fun about this? There's a word for that. It's called the zeitgeist. It's the ghost of the time, or like it's the spirit of the time. I learned about it in English in like 11th grade, and he said it once, and I was hooked on the word ever since. Because like it's
It's a
just
great
so in
word.
like it is, and because it makes no sense when you say it, and then you have to explain it. Because like if someone said zeitgeist to you like casually, what does that even mean? But it's just like how well does it hold up from that time to this time, or does it, or does it not? Like it's so. Oh, I love me a good word. Anyway,
It is a good
let's
word.
talk.
And we are attempting to extract the zeitgeist of 1944, similarly to how Night of the Living Dead extracted locality from
Yes.
southwestern Pennsylvania. Anyway, let's break the ice and
Okay.
talk about how our Halloweens have been going so far.
Yes. I would love to. I can go first. Halloween's been good so far. It's Saturday, so that's gives you a timeline of where we are now. Uh, I am super excited for my Halloween costume tonight, actually. So I want to talk about that for a second. If have we seen SNL? Are we familiar generally? Saturday Night
We're
Live?
familiar.
Okay, there's this one sketch from God, like 2 years ago, and it's Pete Davidson and Timothy Chalamet, and they're in this rapper round table where they don't belong. Me and the beautiful Miss Abigail to whatever side of the screen you see her. We're gonna be Timothy Chalamet and Pete Davidson in from the sketch, and I'm really excited for it because it's gonna be so fun and yay.
I am excited for it.
Mhm.
Um, my Halloween has been very, very chaotic this year. There's been a lot going on, but right now the
Oh,
costume I'm wearing is my A costume, which is Kim Kitsuragi from Disco Elysium. I have a vest, fingerless gloves, glasses. I have pants that fit with the character, and I got big old combat boots. And I also have a blanket with me because my room's really cold.
I know the rooms have been chilly past couple days.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Mhm.
Oh, and my bee costume is I'm matching with the lovely Grace. We are David Bowie and Mick Jagger from the Dancing in the Street music video.
Beautiful.
How about you, John?
Uh, my costume, I only had one, but I was Carmen from The Bear. I
Oh,
had
that
like
I bet that looked
it
really good.
was
Yeah,
yeah, it was nice and simple, just like white t-shirt, black pants, blue apron. It was nice and chill. I haven't done too much this Halloween, but it's been chill. I've got, as I say, prepared. I have a bag of candy
Oh,
at
okay.
all times
Love
for
it.
any emergency. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's been good.
It's beautiful. Abby, what about you?
Oh, I'm Pete Davidson. The
Oh.
second half of Jennifer's not current costume, but
No,
yeah, Halloween's been good. I haven't gotten that much candy, but
I know. I
one of
wish I got
the
more,
nice
actually.
ladies brought in a bag of candy for us at work, so that was
Beautiful.
nice. Shall we
Okay,
all
start
would you
right.
like to talk about
with
film
else?
noir?
Let's talk about film noir. Murder My Sweet.
So scary. No, it wasn't.
I I can go first because my detail occurs relatively early in the runtime. It's at Marlowe and Moose's second meeting, I believe, which is in the bar. There's a little scuffle that happens. Moose, with his extraordinary strength, to send someone flying into a stack of chairs, and then Moose and Marlowe end up talking at the bar, like alone, because the proprietor or the bartender has just been hurled into the chairs by Moose. So they're there up at front and central at the bar, and they're like they come to a conclusion, and they say, "All right, it's time to head out." But before they head out, Moose just kind of like peeks down over the bar behind the counter, and he just reaches down and grabs two bottles, hands one to Marlowe, and then drops cash on the table, and they just walk out.
Hmm.
Um, and I know this is detailed because it's like a sort of transaction that just wouldn't really happen today, at least in the portions of America that I'm familiar with. Maybe there's other parts of America that still practice this, but I for one have never ever seen anyone like purchase something by just kind of like grabbing it and then leaving money somewhere for someone else to pick up later, even though that is like kind of a more common occurrence in older Hollywood movies or in like older stories or pieces of media from that time. You see that happening quite often. So it's definitely a change in ideology in regards to transaction and yeah. Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
Uh, yeah, I guess more so like how. Let me collect my thoughts. Actually, the hat gone. All the thoughts are gone with the hat. I think that interaction in particular is very like reflected in the reflected in the dialogue and the rest of the film, if that makes sense. Because it was
Hmm.
very much like the sense of authority that they both carry with themselves, and just like they can kind of do whatever they want. And again, I'm also not like we frequent the same parts of America where I'm. It's not exactly something that people do anymore, ever, unless it's like a more dine and dash situation. But even then, like not me.
Yeah.
Um, but like it's the way that especially I would say more so Marlowe carries himself in the film, and like the language that he uses and the phrases that he uses is very like reflected in that behavior. Like I'm drawing a line here between those two things, and I don't know if you guys can like see that line, but like in my head that makes sense.
Hmm.
So
It's kind of like Marlowe um, just plays things really, I don't know if casual is the right word, but he just kind of like is so reliant on these like the idea behind the structures of society. Like he's like fully reliant like on the fact that someone is going to pick up the cash and the transaction will be complete eventually. And he just kind of plays with his life fast similarly in how he talks and does other things.
yeah, no, I agree, and you said that much more eloquently than I did, but that was kind of where I was going with it. And anybody else have any thoughts?
I really liked that scene. I thought it was funny when he just dropped the cash, but also I think it definitely was one of those places that in the film when they entered, I was like, oh, this is set in such a specific time. Just the interaction itself, primarily like when they first came down, but also when they exited. And I think just like the structure of the bar area. Um,
Hmm.
and they had the doors. I don't know if it's this like time period in like space
Right.
in America, but like they had the old Western doors that like
Like the
open.
saloon.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I see those and I thought those were really interesting.
Hmm.
No, that's really good because it's like there within the movie, this bar is, or maybe not even within the movie, maybe that's just like an actual bar, um, or this place that they've chosen to film at that is in itself doing like a sort of like spoof or ironic
Mhm.
play on another older zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Hmm.
of that sort of like Western saloon atmosphere.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know, maybe like for whatever reason, like saloon aesthetics were just like popular at that specific region at that specific time. Who knows? But
Somebody knows, but not us.
but
Yeah.
for us in our context looking at this, we're seeing two distinct um aesthetics from different moments of time or different parts of different zeitgeists like collided together in a way that looks like like it's intentionally clashing or it's intentionally contrasting itself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Does anyone else want to discuss their detail next?
I could go into. Actually, I had like two kind of details that I feel like I could kind of play off what Abby was saying for a bit,
Hmm.
and I feel like what I'm going to talk about kind of covers both.
Yeah.
Like,
Do your
like
thing.
I when you said like you like they went into the bar like even though it was just like a bar, which are very much still around today, it just felt different.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't the same as if you went to a bar today. And
Mm-hmm.
I think like something like it just felt like there was a different like culture around drinking. Like
Hmm.
obviously drinking is still very like prominent today. Like people didn't stop drinking, but like it felt like different. Like I don't know. That's it felt like very adult kind of in that movie. Like very mature. Just kind of like if you walked into a bar today, it's probably like people there watching sports or just like I don't know hanging out drinking. There's probably music or something. And here they walk in, they've all got like suits on, or maybe not suits, but like like they're not wearing like sports jerseys. They're there to drink and like I don't know, socialize. And
Yeah.
like it's a very social activity. Like throughout the movie, um, at repeated points during the film, they are like even when the first person he goes to talk to, he brings the bottle of liquor that he got from the bar, and
And
they're
she's
just
very
talking.
excited about it.
And she's
Mhm.
she's very excited about it, and they're just talking over a drink, like because that's just like what they're doing. And like at other points in the time, like when he's talking to like the
And
femme
grill.
fatale character, yeah, like they've got like drinks, they're drinking, like
Hmm.
that's just what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um, and it felt like a lot more. It felt like not necessarily like different, like I don't know, maybe like classier is the word I'm thinking of. Like they
Hmm.
have like all those like glass trays with like the setups and like
Mhm.
um kind of leading into my other detail that I
Yep.
don't know observed.
Yeah.
Before you go into your other detail, could I for 1 second? I think
Yes.
just when you brought up like the whole like the nightlife and how it differs between then and now, I think like there's definitely a similarity there. I feel like if you look at it, um, you know how the conversation now about like third spaces and how like we're losing third spaces,
Yeah.
and because
Hmm.
so third spaces are like school, work, a place that isn't like your work or your home, where you can go and like socialize and be.
Just for the sake
And
of socializing.
yeah, for the sake of socializing. And then like as a country, how heavily we rely on drinking to socialize. And that is something that has not changed over time, I think.
Not a, no, like
Yeah.
the fashion in which it
Oh,
has changed absolutely.
it changed its clothes a
Hmm.
hundred different times.
Uh-huh.
But the underlying, I don't want to call it an issue, but the underlying idea is that we need to be drinking or providing the space to drink and to pay money to drink in order
Yeah.
to socialize. And that is something that
No,
has not, like, that has stayed very
Hmm.
stagnant over time.
Yeah,
hmm
I totally agree. That's kind of like originally I wasn't sure if I was gonna like even like say this detail like during the video because I was like because like people still drink, like it's not
Yeah.
any like people like did not stop drinking. It goes on
No.
a lot and always has, but like it's just kind of the fashion in which we do
hmm
it.
And
That's what's changed.
you notice something when you notice something in the fashion of a different like from a different zeitgeist where it's the same behavior, the same activity like that still exists today, but in a different form. it makes it kind of easier to recognize the ideology behind it. Where,
Yeah.
um, and I think you could say that for just about any like any specific element of it that kind of died with its time, where it's easy to see the ideology when it's so like so stark or so empty in our own context. But no, I think that you pointed out something that was you pointed out that there's something different about how drinking is classy or sort of like liquor is classy in this movie. And I don't think in today's context, like liquor is like the classy drink. Liquor is kind of like something that gets you smashed, gets you fucked up.
No,
Um,
literally, I was just thinking that because like it used to be like drinking to socialize and drinking to be in that place, and like the drinking was the fun part, but it's also the doing it with the people. Versus
yeah,
now, like if you look at it now, and like as John said, like it's more like you see sports bars and like dive bars, things like that. It's drinking to get drunk and not drinking to like talk to other people.
Yeah.
Like it, the
yeah,
what we do and why we do it has changed. Well, why we do it has changed. What it looks like has changed, but what we're doing in an essence has not changed.
Yeah.
hmm
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point because like people like they wouldn't like get drunk in the film. They would just like
Right.
have drinks. Like
no,
that's just what they were doing at the time. Like they weren't like the goal wasn't to get drunk. Like the
of
goal
course
was
not.
to like just talk to each other, and they
Right.
just happened to also have a drink.
Yeah.
But
hmm
yeah,
Yeah,
the nightlife. I don't is or did anybody else want to say anything about that?
I actually think maybe we can return to the nightlife later on in the video because I see a connection between what we were just talking about with alcohol and drinking to drink with Jen's point possibly about what we
Okay.
might get to. I don't know. Let me see. Let me try to make this connection. But
If yeah, go for it.
because we're talking about drinking and drinking for the sake of getting drunk or the sake of like going into an altered state. And so much of this movie is concerned with like altered states of mind or like not from alcohol though, from drugs. And that's very like significant detail that there's like this really several really, but like one very intense, trippy like acid scene where he's been he's been drugged by a doctor to try to get information pried from him. And
Mhm.
Jen, your detail is kind of about doctors and like that, or like specifically doctors that deal with go into it.
I appreciate that segue. I like the effort was there. I appreciate it. I like it. And I do want to talk about the scene you're talking about for like point 0.6 seconds. Nothing to do with like the conversation that are we're supposed to be having. But that whole like acid trip dream sequence, fresh out of the Twilight Zone. Like that is the pre-show for the ride in Disney World. Like that's what it felt like to me. And I needed to say it. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was the usage of the word quack. It happens twice, both in reference to Mr. Amthor, he was like a psychic or a psychic consultant. The first time in particular, it was a conversation between Marlowe and Anne Grail talking about like Marlowe's just trying to like gain information on Amthor, who he is, what he does, like all that fun stuff. And she's like, "Well, he's a quack." Um, that's not a word that we hear anymore. And it just, like it speaks to the way that we view mental health now, especially because one, mental health in the past, it was like, whoa, like let's make a horror movie about this, like like the
hmm
person with depression or something. I don't know. uh, and even now, when we try to make films about mental health and like that's the center and the focus of it, you don't like the word quack. I haven't. I don't think I've seen a movie with that word until now. Like you see
hmm
you and if you're gonna use it in like a negative light, like shrink is still a thing. Second example of another word, but like quack isn't something that like you hear, and it really like it disappeared when we started viewing and talking and researching mental health differently.
hmm
And so using the word quack, it appears a second time later on when Amthor shows up and he refers to himself as a quack. And it's like it's just so like outdated. It's almost extinct as like as something colloquial for this purpose. And I just thought that was something that like I caught on to very quickly. that would
Hmm.
not hold up well now if you were to put it in a film now. Like that film's not getting produced if you're referring to these people in that way, or the people
Hmm.
who practice mental health in that way. Even if you're doing it as commentary, I feel like it wouldn't, like that's not something that would fly very easily, you know?
Yeah. And the film is deeply, like, textually, it is deeply suspicious of doctors and medical field.
Oh,
And
100%.
I'm not too familiar with the historical context revolving around the medical field at this time, but there are a lot of changes, and healthcare is becoming increasingly corporatized at this moment in time. So there's just like, I feel like there's like this like lurch, or this moment where all of a sudden this field has become, and I don't know how to describe it, but the things are changing with how people view doctors, and I think this film might reflect that.
Hmm. Yeah, this was if I'm remembering correctly from like a previous course, it was during this moment in time, the shift towards like modern or like medicalizing mental illness in a way, where a lot of people were being sent to like institutions to try and like cure them. And so like like it was a very, it was it was stigmatized from a lot of different viewpoints, one of which being we're just shoving people away to get them off the street, the other one being we can cure these people, and a third being you can't cure these people, but like these fake doctors think they can cure these people. Like there was a bunch of
Mm,
different viewpoints, none of which were very productive, granted, but it was the shift towards like mental health hospital, like mental institutions and things like that, with the purpose of getting them back on this, like fixing basically.
hmm.
And a lot of people thought that either it couldn't be done or like it's a front. Like it was many were suspicious of the effort for different reasons.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because in you
No, no,
saying
you
something?
can continue. You can continue.
Um, I was just saying that because you see in this movie like how Amthor like uses his medicine, or like his resources as a practitioner to kind of like torture Marlowe to try
Yeah.
to extract information from him. And it's that use of like altered states, or like drugs that like impact and or compromise your cognitive abilities, to be
Hmm.
like to have like your mind infiltrated and information extracted without your knowledge, or without your consent. And I think that that kind of mirrors how Marlowe himself uses alcohol in this movie, where he pretty much like explicitly says in the scene with Anne Grail, where they're drinking together, I think she asks him or says something like, "You don't drink as much as I thought you would as a private, like as a PI," because like I guess there's
Hmm.
this stereotype, or this like understanding that private investigators like drink a lot. And he says something, I don't remember exactly like how he phrases it, but essentially he says that he likes drinking with like the people that he's like investigating or talking to, so that it's easier for them to give him information. So there's so much in the text about using drugs or alcohol to like compromise people's ability to withhold information, or to maintain like this sense of like self, or like privacy about like your mind and yourself.
Hmm. Anybody else got anything to say about that?
No, I think
Okay.
this is literally going to summarize everybody's, but I think it does show a shift in two different ideologies. One in how people view doctors, and the second one in how people view like mental health. And I think it does cross over at times. Um, but I do think it shows an overall mistrust in both. And I think it does place this film in a very specific time. That you also wouldn't see today. If that makes sense. Kind of just
Yeah,
random.
like it's a very specific crossroads of like these two
Yeah,
things happening at the same time. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. All right, Abby, do you want to take us home?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Okay. My detail showed up when Marlo was first being not interviewed, questioned by the police in the police station, and it was just after he got hit and knocked out. In the initial span of when the police are like, "Oh, did you do it? Oh, did you do it?" Marlowe jokes to the authorities and he says, "Oh, great, now I'm a finger for the heist mob. Also, I'm Jack the Ripper," which I think just stood out to me in a few ways. First of all, I think it's just a certain way he speaks and a certain way that multiple people speak in the film that I think does place it in a certain time. Definitely in this film. I'm not sure if all films that would be during this time, everyone would speak in these like metaphor, simile, figurative language. Everything's super descriptive.
Everything's a euphemism.
Mhm.
Exactly. So that stood out to me initially. And then the second one was the comparison to a heist mob and Jack the Ripper, where I feel like if you compared something to a heist mob currently, the comparison wouldn't stand as much as it would back in, when was this produced?
44.
1940s?
44.
44, where I feel like there was much more prominent mobs that people could attach the comparison to, and it would stand in real, it would just, what's the word that I'm, it would be more anchored to real life, the comparison, than I think it would be in the current day.
Mm.
I am so sorry. I came up with a really good letterbox review for this movie and I'm writing it down right now.
Oh, good.
I'm trying to think through what you said, Abby. Yeah, I really language is such a like an immense factor in like how this movie is grounded in time for sure. And I think even more so than like the specific like actions. Like I think that we as a group have done like a pretty good job of looking for like because we want to find like specific actions or like things that characters do or like environments around them that inform the sense of like time specificity. But the, like because like if we had just like picked the first one we found, it would have definitely been like language or turn of phrase because like it's just like so dominant over the screen. Like people are just like saying shit that
Hmm.
barely makes sense to in our context, and we have to like take like five extra steps to be able to or like use the we have to like rely on the context of the situation. Otherwise, it's like almost like they're speaking in a different language.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that maybe it is like significant that language is like the primary thing that kind of has this like scent or this like this scent of the zeitgeist
Hmm.
um rather than like the actions that characters take or like the places they're around because maybe people take language for granted in a way that's different than they take like every other aspect of their life for granted. I'm not sure.
I think
I Oh
you
no,
can
you
go.
no, Abby, you go because I think mine is changing the topic a little bit. Not really, but
Okay.
go.
I think there is something important about language in placing it in a certain time period. I feel like the way that like slang that would have been used in the 90s is so much different than today. And even I go home and I talk to like my 15-year-old brother and like granted some words he says I have no clue. They're all references to things that I feel like it is such a specific thing that when you talk to somebody, what words they use are such references to like either what they viewed, pop culture, what time they grew up in, and everything like that, that I think it is inherent that language has such a direct tie to certain time periods. And that's why we see so many references and just the way they speak in the pop culture they mention is tying it right back to the 40s.
Hmm. And I
Really
really, Abby, oh,
go on, Jen. You're
I really liked the example that you pulled out, Abby, because it speaks to not like it places it in a very specific narrow time because of the things we're referencing. It's Jack the Ripper, it's the mob, and it's also I feel like at least it speaks to like who's saying it as well. I'm basically reiterating what you're saying now that I think about it, but like those things in particular, like it's not how Marlowe views himself, but it's very like they feel like Marlowe references to make, and that's based off of other things we see him do in the film. The way he conducts himself, the other phrases and uses that he says, the way he says them. And like
Mhm.
it's very like I thought that was a good like you picked a good one to explain this point.
Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, I was just gonna ask Abby, like really quick, like what is one thing that your brother has said recently that has just left you scratching your head?
I wish I knew. I wish I remembered because there's times it's so bad. There's times where I'm on the phone and my mother is also on the phone and he says something and my mother doesn't get it and neither do I. And then I feel old. Then I feel very old. But I'm trying to
Yeah.
think. It's usually just TikTok references or something. Then I'm just like, it's not whatever you're watching on YouTube Shorts or TikTok is not what I'm watching.
On YouTube Shorts is a
Something,
crazy thing to
That's
something.
say.
wild. YouTube
It's
Shorts is
literally
like the
4 years
scariest thing
difference.
No, and
conceptually. If we're
it's
gonna,
so popular. It's so
He
yeah, it
watches
popular.
them
really
on the
is.
TV.
Huh?
I think YouTube Shorts are the
Alarming.
end of the world, honestly. Like that's just like
No, it's
the
the
zenith
like
of
this is the
everything that
horseman
is
of the
wrong.
apocalypse. Yeah.
Oh my God. And you were talking about, I think before we started recording, you were like Jen, you were saying something about
What I say?
like how oh, that was in response to the laundry boy thing though. Do we want to talk about the laundry boy thing? Because you said something
I
about how like
I think we could, yeah. Like we have the time. We could do a quick little chat about the laundry
quick
boy.
little check. I'll toss this
Yeah.
in right now. I have a second detail that I was gonna just like have as like a secret weapon just in case we needed it. But essentially, Marlo is at his like apartment, I think, or like his place of residence, and then like he's just like standing around,
His bachelor
and then
pad.
yeah, his bachelor pad. Yes, he's standing around, and then like this kid just like comes in, like knocks on the door, and then waltzes in. He's wearing like sweatpants and like a crew neck or something. It definitely looks like something that like someone today would be wearing at like high school or whatever.
Hmm.
But it's just kid who like waltzes in with these slouchy clothes. He like goes up to Marlo's bed, picks up like this like big bag of laundry, and he says something like, "Wow, it's been 6 weeks. You must be in love." And then Marlo just like kind of like slaps him on the butt with a towel, and then like they just like he just leaves, and that's the whole interaction. And
Hmm.
I was just kind of like I noticed that that kind of like even though there is like definitely like cleaning services are definitely like a huge part of society today, it feels like it feels completely different, at least in my experience and what I've seen, where it's like this guy is like Marlo's guy. Like they have like a professional relationship with each other. And
Hmm.
today, I think that the kind of services that are done by, if they're done at all still, because I think that like that kind of stuff just isn't as common anymore in general, but
Oh
also
yeah.
where it does exist, it's a lot more like anonymized. Like you don't really like know these people who do services for you.
Hmm. No, does anybody else have anything to say about that? Because I fear my audio space is being consumed by myself. Um, as we talked about this before the video started, that like that's even if you looked in like decades prior to now, but like look at like 1990, 2000, you don't see people like getting their laundry taken out anymore.
Hmm.
And like we're very much in the era of like we do things ourselves and like a peak independence.
Hmm.
But then when you look at like post-COVID, I feel like it's come very full circle on itself. Where at like we started at this point where people would like the milkman dropped off your food, like dropped off your food, dropped
Dropped
off your
off the
milk.
milk.
Yeah, you had little boys coming in and stealing your laundry and bringing it back a day later. Like like these things occurred and it was normal. And then we shifted into this like I can buy my own milk from the grocery store. I
Yeah.
can do my own laundry or I can take it to the laundromat. I can do it myself, whatever. Like peak independence in America. And now post COVID, I feel like we've circled back to like we can hire people to do it for us, but it again it looks so different, but the concept has not changed. Where it's like I'm thinking about the DoorDash that I got the other day, which turned out to be
DoorDash,
really
exactly.
delicious. But like you can bring it up to my door, or I can go meet you somewhere to get it, but you brought it to me and I hired you to
Hmm.
do it. And then with the laundry, like I personally don't order out laundry, but I have friends who like that's a thing that they're capable of doing where they can just have somebody come in, take their laundry and then bring it back. Like
Uh-huh.
it looks
And
super different, but I feel like it's so like folded in on itself now where it's like the concept has not changed in the
mhm.
slightest, even though we were at a point where we didn't want to act like that. And now we're back.
And I think that there's something. not to leave the 1940s style of this sort of work uncriticized, because I think there's like a lot of ways that you can talk about that critically too. But I think
Oh
that
yeah.
like especially today with what you're talking about, noticing this resurgence in recent years, it's like it's sort of it feels really perverse in a sort of way, like the sort of relationships that people have with the people who are performing this labor for them. But it's like I think like exceptionally anonymized in a way that like really kind of defines how like this sort of like I think general awkwardness that our zeitgeist has. Like I think
Right.
like we have like an incredibly socially awkward period of time where
The millennial
people
zeitgeist, is that what you're talking about right now?
I think I'm talking about the millennial zeitgeist, but like the like I don't know, like people like having stuff done for them increasingly in recent years, but they also don't like being around people,
Yeah.
or
It's
they're kind of scared about it, so they try to make every like interaction in these contexts as like anonymized and dehumanized as possible. And I
mhm.
think that it's like I think that the connection you can make between 1940s and also like maybe what the film is saying about what the film might be like revealing about its present moment is that these people who perform services for you, or like the people who like are the groundwork of the institutions in like just like life or American culture that like keep things running, maybe you don't know them, maybe like they're this kind of like anonymized force to you, but they
Mhm.
might know you, like because like the laundry boy like makes a comment about his love life. There's also like like the guy in the elevator at the hotel who like is clearly familiar with like Marlowe's personal life to a certain extent, and I think that that's kind of indicative of the paranoia or like the surveillance aspect of film noir.
Mhm. That's a very interesting observation. I didn't think about it like that. But I certainly don't have anything to add to that because I didn't think about it like that. But I love your point. Does anybody have anything else that they want to say before? I have a little bit of an exit ticket for us, but
Exit ticket.
yeah,
No.
and I hate that I said it like that. But like, does anybody have anything to add, to say, to feel, to emote?
Um,
No?
oh my goodness, I'm just realizing that like earlier we
Sandra's
cut
emoting.
John off when he was talking about the nightclub thing. Would you like to continue talking about
Oh
that
yeah,
really
do you
quick?
want to tell us about your
I
nightclub?
think I feel like now that I've mentioned it, I'll like at least describe it, but it's like very much like it's kind of the same point as like the drinking that I was
Yeah.
talking about. That's kind of why I had
Okay.
them together. But like when they're go like he meets it's like the third time he meets Moose, I think, or he's meeting with um the old rich guy's daughter at this club, and like at this club, it's not think of when you hear somebody going to the club today. Like they were there. There's live music being played, like with instruments. The band's got suits on. Everybody's dressed up.
Yeah, it was like a
Like
jazz club almost.
Yeah.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
watching somebody like a woman, like really dressed up, dancing, like, and everybody's just kind of at a table. They have drinks,
Hmm.
and they're just kind of either talking or watching, which is I feel like a good amount different than the club experience today,
Yeah.
where it'll be like a
Hmm.
lot of loud music through speakers. There's like a DJ rather than like a band.
Hmm.
People aren't dressed formally. Like it's very casual. People are there. They're getting drunk. Like
Right,
Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
they're like it's less of a I don't know like formal kind. Like even then it's not formal because that is casual for like the time I guess. But like that's what going out was, and going out now is like you go to the club. There's going to be loud like music to dance to. Like everybody's up and moving. People are like drinking to get drunk.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
think you muted
I
yourself.
think I think you
you're really getting into it at the end too. I feel bad.
Yeah, it's because my notebook is sitting on my keyboard.
yeah, that
Oh.
that darn notebook.
Always happens, but yeah, it's just like something that exists in both time periods, but looks very different.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Idea
And
is
I
kind of the same, but in practice, very different.
yeah, I
But
think
that's the
that's
thing with
like
human nature. Really quick, the idea doesn't change, but the way we do it does. And
hmm
sometimes, as before, like it could fold in on itself, or it could look completely different. But like if you look throughout human history, it's actually so interesting. We do the same thing always. It just looks super different depending on the context, and that's such a good example of that.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that like this like sort of style of like nightclub experience or nightlife experience, I think is extinct in this country, even though like you do like the things that you describe do still happen, but the context in which they occur and the way that people engage with them is like radically different. Like today, if you were to like go to like a thing or like an experience or something where like with like live music and a performance, like that becomes like the essential like subject of the occasion. Where like it's like something that you'd go to, there'd be like a $20 entrance fee. You'd sit down with a lot of people, sit quietly and just like watch it unfold. Um, but as we can see in the movie, like that's like simply like the atmosphere where the subject is like socializing and being with people. And
Hmm.
I don't think that really like that I don't really think that exists anymore.
Hmm.
I think that's a solid place to end our discussion about this, unless anybody has something else to say, obviously. I
Yeah.
I conjured a second exit ticket, so we could do one or both. I don't really care. So one is clearly better than the other, but I'm presenting both options. So the first one I came up with was, I don't know if you guys noticed, but when lovely Sandra does our editing, she adds like the title, and the title like it's something somewhere, and the first part it's reflective of a location in the film. What would you call what location would you put for this episode, or for like for Murder My Sweet? Like when we did the Big Sick, that was like in a hospital waiting room somewhere, or it was like in a hospital somewhere, and then us was like in a basement somewhere. Like you get the gist, because it
Hmm.
was impacting based on the plot. Or alternatively, if you could take one actor out of this film and replace it with Danny DeVito, which character would it be?
Oh, this is marvelous.
I think
Oh
we
my
should do the
God.
second one. Uh,
Yeah.
I could start if you need a second to think, because
Give me a
I
second to think.
really
I
like
need a
Danny.
second to think.
I need to pull up the cast real quick.
Oh, I can't tell you any of the actors' names, but I will like this description will be so bad. I would replace Mr. Grail with Danny DeVito, just for that scene at the end when he's like sitting in the chair and they're like shooting at each other, and like that whole thing. That is the
Yeah.
only reason why I would do that. That man is barely in the film. I want Danny DeVito in that spot.
I think
I
that's
think he'd be
good.
really, but like Danny DeVito, but only like his Always Sunny in Philadelphia character.
No, I'm
Like
thinking
that's who
like
I want there.
Hmm.
I'm thinking like yeah, of course, Frank Reynolds.
Yes.
That would be it would be marvelous because like if you've seen Always Sunny, whenever like Frank or like Danny DeVito like has a gun, it's like the funniest fucking thing you've ever seen.
For
Like
no
he like the
reason.
way he holds it, the way he like moves with it, it's just like
Mhm.
it like I'm thinking of like I don't know like the Die Hard spoof episode where the Boyles like kind of like hold them hostage and like it
Mhm.
but then like he's in like the air vents like crawling around like John like he's like and he has like his gun and he's like holding around like that. It's good. I'd love to see
Mhm.
that.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Um, I don't know. Maybe like since I'm thinking about that club scene, maybe he should be the one who's dancing. I'm not sure, but
You're
Fair.
right.
I
That
think
was a
that
good
would be
one.
like a cool thing. Like that they just like that's just how it is. Like that's part of the times. Like
Yeah,
it's
like
never
an
acknowledged. He's just shown in the
yeah.
background, just dancing
Mhm.
around. Like,
Never acknowledged, but like he's just there.
mm,
Very good.
Beautiful. Abigail,
How about
Sandra.
Mhm. Okay, I want to see him flipped with Moose. Like
I
same
was I
actions,
thought about that.
same everything, like throwing people against the wall, but it just com two completely different people. But everything Moose does, but
Supposed to
Danny
be here to
DeVito
here in
doesn't.
height.
Don't change a thing about the actions of blocking anything. Danny DeVito.
And then there was one. Or
I
else we don't
think
get the
that
Zoom.
Oh my God. I think that I really like the Mr. Grail idea. But I also think it would be really funny to see Danny DeVito as I don't even know if he has a name. Oh yeah, Dr. Sonderberg. Because I think that like if you're just watching like a 1940s film noir and then all of a sudden Danny DeVito's there with like drugs and needles like staring down as you're tripping out on acid. Like I think that's perfect.
I didn't think of that. That's a really good one. I thank you all for your answers. I will take them into consideration.
Mhm.
hmm
Casting.
But yeah, do we have any questions, comments, concerns about Murder My Sweet by who filmed it? What's his name?
Edward Dmytryk.
Okay. Do we have any questions about any of that stuff?
I think so. I just would like to say quickly for like a potential a mythic part two episode where we would continue this conversation. I think
Okay.
that I would love to hypothetically start talking about criticizing the specific like differences in era, and criticize the ideology of that time because I think that our conversation we spent a lot of it talking about like criticizing our period early. I did that. And I think that while that made good discussion, I would also love for our potential viewers to kind of think about how um think about how ways in which we could also like criticize the surveillance aspect of the 1940s zeitgeist.
I think that's super interesting, but I would like to counter with I don't know, like criticizing our past, I feel like is very almost counterintuitive or counterproductive. And like I don't think we should criticize our present either. We live and we learn. And we can certainly like look at it from a critical lens, but I don't really know what I want to say here, but like do you see my thought process at all?
I see
Can
your
someone
thought process.
like conduct the train? But I think that'd be super I think that's a super interesting way to look at it for sure.
hmm
Super
Mhm.
thought-provoking, super we should
Super
talk
for
about
another
it.
time.
Yeah. But I appreciate you bringing it up because no one ever says anything when I say questions, comments, concerns. And someone did have a question. That was beautiful.
I have a
Yeah.
question. Does
Wonderful.
anybody know if there's second movies following Marlowe? Because I actually got attached towards the end. I
No,
need
I
him.
was a
I
big fan of
need to watch
Marlowe.
like 5 more
Hmm.
with just Marlowe. So I don't know if he mentioned that in class and I missed it. He might have.
There's certainly lots of movies with Dick Powell, the actor from Marlowe, and I'm sure
Yeah,
he's just as lovable and charismatic in his other features.
hmm Oh, really, really quick. Does anyone want to hear the letterbox review I felt the need to write down while
Yes.
Abby was speaking? Um, it's Murder My Sweet, and the entire movie is the same, but he kisses Nolte at the end when he says, Nolte, I haven't kissed anybody in a while. That's it. That's the whole review.
No,
Four
that's
stars
good.
maybe.
Mhm.
Because I was really entertained. But anyway, that was Murder My Sweet. We talked about it.
We talked about it.
I'm
That's
Jennifer
So
Francisco
Havana.
Goya.
Oh,
That's Jen.
hey.
I'm Abby.
I'm John.
Do you
I'm
guys at the
Kim
same time next week?
Kitsuragi. I think so. Let me check my
Okay.
my calendar.
Okay.
Oh,
Same next
I don't
week?
know.
oh
Oh,
yeah.
that's Chiaroscuro right here. I don't know how this happened. For some reason my light's been doing that
Hey, and we
on the
didn't talk
camera.
about him at all.
We didn't
I don't think we didn't have to. We could have.
we
Like,
didn't
film
talk about
noir.
Chiaroscuro. No, we didn't. We
He
didn't need to
listener
talk
heard
about it.
always.
This is a demonstration, folks. Painting with light. Painting with light. Look at that. I wonder what happens if I put my face in it. That's interesting.
Okay, everybody leave. This is not working.
No! All right, bye.